As Franciscans, we have multiple different expressions of a Franciscan life, one of them being a group called the Poor Clare Sisters, a monastic community founded also by St. Francis and St. Clare of Assisi. And sometimes still have relationships and friendships with the Poor Clare Sisters, thank God, throughout the years. And one of my friends who's now gone to God, Sister Claire Andre, once gave a talk to the friars, and she told us a story that in their monastery up in New Jersey that they had a group of sisters that brought up at their house meeting the idea that on Thursdays they would have a quiet, unstructured prayer day, obviously with the Mass, but a retreat day. So that kind of struck me as being a bit strange. Isn't that every day in a monastery? But truly, they had to work quite hard on to support themselves in their ministry as distributors of the Eucharistic bread in the diocese there. And so they thought, well, let's give it a try because we got to also support and pay our bills. So they said, after about a month, we'll see if we can continue to sustain this retreat day. And after that month, or maybe it was a little longer than that, as they saw the impact, they realized that by doing that, they were actually more productive, that they produced more than they had working 5 days a week. And she said her teaching to us was that proves to her, at least, that the more time we give to God, the more we get done. It might seem counterintuitive that would be wasting time, but no, that there's a need to have this rootedness and this growth in depth so that then it can overflow into our work. And one of the images that it struck me, and was thinking about that with the first words of the first reading, that the Word of God continued to spread and grow. That at Easter, it struck me that one way that we could see the Easter season is almost like a megaphone. That's really what we're being invited to do, is continue to find ways to let it spread, spread and grow. And how do we do that? It's not just by remembering or thinking about the past, but now continuing to deepen our time with God, our conversation with God in prayer, so that we might do and have less things in our life that would be considered a waste of time. It seems to me that that's a challenge that I still struggle with, and maybe you too. And I'm thinking a lot of the electronic media that we seem to get kind of sucked into, and we're already spending hours. And it's not just that, of course. Maybe for me sometimes it's watching television too long, or thinking about how can I be in spending time that would be more meaningful in God's sight. And I think that's what ultimately these readings were helping me to sense, that what Jesus is describing about his relationship and being an example or representative of the love of the Father has an impact, not just in the past, but now. And that he's invited us into that relationship. And, the theologians have developed that early on in the church to help participate in the defining God as the Holy Trinity. But before even that, the church was really trying to say, okay, this is how and why the church spread far and wide, not because they were just getting better at communicating and talking, yes, maybe, but they were growing in this deep relationship with Jesus Christ. And it maybe even surprised them after the way that his life seemed to end on earth. And yet we know that these chosen disciples had this encounter with Jesus, risen from the dead in the flesh, and how that spread and motivated them to become examples in the flesh of God's love working. And that's where I think we are invited today to see how might we continue to go into those depths, maybe taking a little bit more time, giving a little bit more time to God in prayer, and looking at the results, seeing how that would allow us maybe, like Sister Claire Ande suggested, that we might become even more productive. So we're not going to be lazy or just kind of hide away although we might need to do that one day a week or sometime during the day, is have that quiet space with God. But how God then moves through us as that megaphone, spreading in the Easter message, spreading and growing. So might that be a good encouragement for us as we are nourished today by the very life of Jesus Christ, to say, okay, how do you want to keep spreading? How do you want to grow in me and in this community in a way that might keep that process going forward for ultimately the salvation of the world? That's our task. It's not to solve all those problems, but to see how God might allow the light that might appear even within us through Jesus to help the world to grow. So might we give that everything we've got.